I love your home already, and I haven't even seen it. Does that sound crazy? It's not. When we improve our surroundings, we simultaneously empower ourselves, which means every inch of space within your reach right now is an opportunity to tell the story you want to be living. Tell me that's not its own kind of wonderful. I have spent the last 15 years consulting clients and their homes through the wisdom of Feng Shui, intentional design, and some crystal clear communication. And you know what happens when you bring those three together? Life-changing magic. Your home is already in a conversation with you, so why not learn how to merge that awareness with some simple, straightforward, and smart action to co-create the life you want? I'm Amanda Gibby Peters, and I am here to help you learn how. Welcome to House Therapy. There are a lot of interesting ideas out there about what a Feng Shui consultation involves or entails. Like there's some sort of standard template that we practitioners all use to read a home and its energy. So this might come as a surprise to some of you, but there in fact isn't. One of the first things I do on a consult is ask questions, and a lot of them. I can't possibly determine where to start in a home, much less what to prioritize without first identifying a client's objectives, expectations, and any situations they're facing. Like, why did they reach out to me? Those answers almost always dictate where I'm going to begin, not some standard template or formula. So in that spirit, we're going to kick off today's episode with a few questions you can borrow from me that have more bandwidth for making big shifts happen than you'd probably expect. So first up, I'm going to look around the rooms of a client's space and ask, is this space representative of where you want to be in 2 to 5 years? Living with what you love includes working with your home as a vision board. So if this idea is new to you, consider what you would like to forecast for yourself. And once you know, incorporate some visible proof of that energy in your surroundings. That is one way to put your home and that environmental accountability partner to work. All right, another question. Does anything in the space distort observations that my client has of themselves or the experiences they've had? So a lot of times with clients, I'll find this quote unquote proof of those perceptions in their closets, the what ifs, the artifacts of stories that they'd like to move past, or some sort of visual insistence that change isn't possible for them. And my suggestion, and again, only do this when you've run this wisdom through your own filter, is to let go of those items because the energy promoting those sabotaging beliefs will lose their velocity when you do. Another really great question. What is holding their attention hostage from what they really want to be focusing on? And an easy culprit I see is clutter. Clutter is often procrastination in disguise. And remember, clutter shows up in all sorts of ways. Now, we've talked about it quite a bit on the pod here. So if you need any motivation or guidance, go back and give those episodes a quick listen. Another thing I like to do is look around and notice if there's anything else in their spaces that's holding them back. So pay cautionary attention to the stories that you hear as you look around and consider what's in your surroundings, because everything is energy and everything is connected. So any story that you don't like is definitely waging influence in your life. Okay, so here's what happens in a Feng Shui consultation. You are getting really decisive advice on changes you can make or implement in your surroundings that will directly improve your life. So while a Shui checklist or quick tips like the ones I often share on Instagram are useful, they're often prescribed to be as user-friendly for a collective audience as possible. Within a consult, however, the feedback that you're going to get will be specifically tailored for you, guided by your objectives and needs and your home's specific layout and or challenges. And I'm saying that because it's going to set us up now for another point of today's episode, which is something that I've mentioned already, but is worth reiterating. When I was brand new to Feng Shui, I found it equally intriguing as I did confusing. I couldn't figure out all the contradictions. And it took me a couple of years, actually, because every time I was reading something new, I would break out in sweats like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this all wrong. And eventually, and thankfully, I figured out, oh, there are different applications of Feng Shui. Hello, BTB. Hello, compass, form, classical. That's why we have so many contradictions. So my journey involved hiring consultants initially to help me with our home. I then found mentors and studied under several experts with varying backgrounds. I eventually attended a couple schools for training and certifications. And it was sort of in that collective swirl of exposure and many, many years of practice before I was able to really distinguish and appreciate, oh, these differing approaches actually share quite a bit of common ground. And that discovery is what validated them all for me, which is why you will hear me say, if you're ever in a class with me, there are many paths up the same mountain and they all get you there. Every practice, every school, every approach is rich with its own wisdom and therefore has something to offer. So no, there is not one school or thought or approach that I think is superior. I actually believe that the Feng Shui is always as good as the expert, the practitioner, the author sharing it. Now, that's a practitioner level answer. So when someone asks me this question, and it's one that happened to land in my inbox recently, can we mix up the Shui? So like as a house, can I use compass Shui and room by room use the modern Shui? Am I cheating? Will it be effective? My answer is there is no right or wrong answer here. It will help tremendously if you understand both well. And if you do understand compass and modern, go for it. In my house therapy certification program, I do share when and how I mix the different schools when working with clients. And I share how I determine the quote unquote best choice when they're in conflict. Say your power direction is not agreeable with being in command. However, what I really want you to take away from this conversation is this. When we go back to the roots of Feng Shui, remember this. The foundation for it all is calling in, corralling, and pooling as much auspicious chi as possible so you can live a healthier and hopefully longer and happier life. This is why I approach every home and its Shui needs and priorities first with a chi assessment. And it usually begins before I even step into the space, because if chi is being sabotaged along the way to a home, it is losing potency before it even comes inside. And that outdoor influence, well, that hails from the early classical compass schools. So chi is a really big deal in all of the Feng Shui school conversations. So what I want to do today is wrap this conversation with a peek into my process. This is also a peek into my Become Your Own Feng Shui Consultant course, really helping you add a few more questions to the list we started with. And one quick note, a common question that's landing in my inbox these days is the Feng Shui that you share the same for condos and apartments and dorm rooms? And the answer is yes. All right. So when I am working with a client, the first thing I'm going to do is pay attention to what is happening around the home or their space as I approach and drive through the neighborhood. What's the geography, the landscape, life around the home like? And if I am meeting my client virtually, which is about 60% of my clientele, 2 words: Google Earth. The next thing I'm doing is I am noting my very first impressions as I pull up to a space. What does the property say? How do I feel as I approach the front door? And I pay really close attention to what I notice immediately when I enter the home. All of this is really going to help me get a sense of the quality of energy and life experience coming into the home. Once I'm inside the space, I'm going to note, how is energy moving through the home as well as each individual space? What is the quality of the energy within each room? What's the quality of energy that emanates from the things in the room? You see, chaos has a certain energy to it that, say, a perfectly organized and staged room doesn't, and yet they're going to both get my attention for different reasons. I'm also going to notice, does the room feel balanced? And this is where a quick Chinese element, yin-yang assessment might happen. It's kind of what I think of as taking the blood pressure or heart rate of the room. Is the space or a room being used? Does it have a purpose? Is there a life force and vitality coming from it? Because even the most beautiful rooms, at least in my experience, if they're not being used, there will be a qi deficiency. And then we move into more specific expertise, but are there patterns that are being held in place that contribute to the challenges that the owner or the family who lives here is experiencing? You see, regardless of the Feng Shui approach you pursue, getting the qi right is, and again for me, the highest on my list because it satisfies any school you practice. And if you understand the qi spectrum, the 5 elements, interpreting yin and yang, identifying when qi is moving gently and nourishingly through a home versus when it's being challenged or where challenges are being created by the architecture and the layout, you'll really be amazed at how far those efforts and that understanding will take you without having to overthink or overdo it on the varying readings of your home determined by the school that you're practicing. And just like that, it's another episode wrap. A million thanks for being here and listening today. And if you're not quite ready for this conversation to end, come find me on the gram. I'm at Amanda Gibby Peters, or grab a copy of my book, Simple Shui for Every Day, available at Amazon and Bookshop and anywhere you get your books. And if you want to work with me, check out simpleshui.com for all the ways we can make that happen. Cheers to marvelous week, sweets, and I hope to see you back here in a week. Until then, give that house of yours some big love for me.